This is George Bayruthi from FS Securities, a stockbroking firm on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. Every Monday morning I go through what happened globally around the world and try to forecast what we may see this coming weeks. I show you how investors and traders may make money on our stock markets. I will also show you what is hot and what is not, and what you should hold and what you should fold. So enjoy the presentation, and if you enjoy it, please give us some feedback. Over the full week and from around the globe, we start with the Dow Jones. We can see here that the Dow Jones, which is of course the index in America for the top 30 stocks, was up 0.7% over last week. However, when we combine the 2 weeks together, it's actually a bit less because 2 weeks ago we had a loss. So we're still in front over the last 2 weeks by 0.5% or 141 points. The Nasdaq Technology Index was up 2.3% over the last 2 weeks. And the S&P 500 Index, which comprises the top 500 stocks, was up 1.76% over the last 2 weeks. Most of it came last week. The US dollar over the last 2 weeks was down against most currencies, down by 0.45%, and was actually very steady last week. The Australian dollar, 0.4% rise over the last 2 weeks, even though we had a decline last week. Looking at commodities, gold was up $13.60 over last week. Most of it came actually last week. So in last 2 weeks ago we had hardly a rise, and most of the rise over the 2 weeks happened actually the last 7 days. Silver, also the same situation, 2.7% over last week. Crude oil, that is the West Texas crude oil, was up very strongly last week, 5.5%. However, there was a loss 2 weeks ago. In combination, over the last 2 weeks we had 3% rise. If you're interested to trade any of those commodities such as natural gas, wheat, corn, soybeans, coffee, all you have to do is call us and we'll help you out and do what we can do for you in trading those commodities. Now, the weekly forecast, what we see here on our sectors, we see that our ASX 200, that is our gauge, over the last 2 weeks was up by 2%. A continuation of what happened last week. We have 2 weeks of rises. And that gauge, the ASX 200, is made primarily by two main sectors, the financial and the materials. When both sectors were up accordingly, then of course the ASX 200 takes lead from those two sectors. Well, we see over the last 2 weeks the financial had a good 2 weeks, 1% last week, 2.8% over the last 2 weeks. Very good performance by the financials. However, the material sectors, we had a good week last week, but not so well 2 weeks ago. In combination, we've had actually a fall of 0.3%. Nevertheless, we can see the ASX 200 over the last 2 weeks was up by 2% over 2 weeks. Most of it happened last week. Looking across all the sectors, we can see that resources up 2.7%, energy up 2.2%. Over the last 2 weeks, energy had a very good 2 weeks, nearly 5% rise. The worst performing sector was actually gold, down 7.8% over the last 2 weeks. Most of the fall was actually 2 weeks ago. Looking at our stocks right down here, we can see that AMP was up 15% over the last 2 weeks. Bramble had a very bad 2 weeks, down 17%, even though the rise last week did not help the combination of the 2 weeks. Nucleus Mines, again reflecting what happened to gold, was down 8% over the last 2 weeks. Most of the drop happened 2 weeks ago, a continuation last week by 2%. We like to actually look at the 2 weeks in combination because that gives us a better perspective about what happened 2 weeks in a row. Now, when you look at volume has been going up. The last couple of days, Thursday and Friday, we've seen a very good rise in the volume, and you can see here we've had the advances exceeding the declines over the last 2 weeks. So that's actually very bullish for our market. So we can actually take from that the market maybe with a good percentage of probability that the market will continue to go higher on Monday and beyond Monday as well. Now, of course, there are a lot of international factors, such as the discussion between China and Russia and the US, China and the US, regarding the trade sanctions. Here over the last 10 weeks, we can see the last 3 weeks we've had the advances exceeding the decline. That's also very bullish. We have a mechanical system that we have designed over the last 2 years based on technical analysis that include 8 technical indicators. Through them, we're able to create a strategy for the investor as well as the traders. And if you're a trader, we like to know whether you're a conservative trader, aggressive trader, or very aggressive trader. And we have a strategy for each of you guys. So looking at the American market, the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 bullish, even the Dow Jones bullish for the aggressive and the very aggressive trader. Gold, we've gone from number of weeks of bearish starting to be a sign of bullish trend for the very aggressive trader. But if you're an investor or a conservative trader, you sit on the sideline as neutral trades. The Australian dollar has gained from very bearish 5 weeks ago, bullish, and then of course bullish again here for the aggressive trader and the very aggressive trader. If you're trading the British pound, we can see that we are in a bullish trade, that's the British pound versus the US. This is actually the chart for the Dow Jones. As you can see, last week we had a very good week, very strong green candle for the week, for the daily. And you look at the weekly on the left hand side, again a green candle, albeit a small range, not very strong bullish for the weekly, but nevertheless bullish. Look at our market. We find here that our market, most of the sectors are bullish with the exception of gold and telecommunication. So at the moment you don't want to trade on the bullish side for Telstra or TPG. And gold, again, bearish position, even though it's above $1,500 US and hovering around that level for quite some time. If you want a copy of this slide, all you have to do is call us and we'll send you a copy of it. That may help you to determine the trend for what you want to trade. This is the ASX 200, that's our gauge. You can see for the last 5 days we've seen no red candles at all. Very strong week for us. And that's the weekly here on the side. We had 3 weeks of a continuous improvement. And looking at for the weekly indicators, the parabolic stop and reverse bullish, stochastic bullish. In the daily we have very strong parabolic and stop reverse bullish. And here you look and see the orange line, that is actually the 9-day moving average above the 21. Again, that's also very bullish. The only thing is, if you look at that strongly thick orange, that is actually the 50-day moving average, happens to be below the 100. But nevertheless, the 100 is well above the 200, which is still very positive. Okay, looking at our mechanical system for our market, Newcrest Mine bearish, very strong bullish for Macquarie Bank, the NAB, ANZ, QBE, Santos, Wesfarmers and Worley. And again, TPG, you don't want to trade that at the moment, is very bearish, and Newcrest Mine very bearish. So that's, again, it helps us to determine how we're going to really trade the market this week. Now in terms of volume, over the week and over the daily. We do that every day, but what I show you here is actually the extreme rise in volume trading for the top 50. You can see Santos had 110% volume over the average. The average is about 27 million, and last week we've seen 29 million trades for Santos on the bullish side. So that's again may create an interest in to find out why Santos has gone up by that much, and the volume has also been rising. Nothing on the bearish side. Now, if you're a very aggressive trader, data number 3 has been showing up as well as Western areas with quite a reasonable volume day after day, which in combination of a weekly, we can see that data number 3. Unfortunately, however, if you want to trade CFDs, because that's the only way you can actually trade those midterms, you can actually get only bullish on some of those companies, but you cannot go bearish. So down below here we've got Galaxy, we've got Hansen Technologies. The first thing you want to do if you want to trade on the bearish side is to see whether they are available to trade on CFDs. Data number 3 is not available at all, bullish or bearish, on the CFDs. So not all companies can actually be traded on the bullish side or on the bearish side. So talk to us and we'll help you out to find out something for you on the very aggressive side. Now, over the week, we can see here the Dow was up 0.6% and the Nasdaq was up 0.7%. BHP was up 0.7% in New York, and the StockX 50 index was up 0.1%. The FTSE was down 0.1%. Gold down 0.1%. You can see here. However, we want to actually also talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin last Saturday, on Saturday, was actually at 9,551, was up $2,000 US compared to the week before, and that converts to approximately 14,000 Australian dollars, up 3,000 Australian dollars over the week. Okay, now in terms of our CFD trading, on Friday last week, I showed you that we were actually up 7,200. That was actually a rise of 81.8%. However, we had a bad week last week. The British pound did not give us what we were expecting. There's been a lot of hovering around the British pound. We're still in profit. However, the 81.8% profit today is only 65%. We're still positive. We're still making 2,567, even though with the losses that we incurred trading the British pound last week and also some losses on Appen, we're still 65% above with our capital. Finally, everything we said today, we have a disclaimer because we don't know your financial circumstances. Before you take any action, please consult with us or your professional advisor. We don't know your financial circumstances, so again, everything we said is of general advice only. If you have any question to ask us, all you have to do is write to us, or you can call us. If you write to us, you can write to george@fssecurities.com.au, or you can call me on my mobile. I'm available 12 hours every day, 7 days a week. 61 if you're ringing from overseas, you don't need the 0. 61-411-259526. Happy trading and happy week.